G'day, it's Jamie, and welcome to Where's My Yowie. Today, I'm reading an old newspaper report about a Bunyip story set on the Tumut River in 1898, so we'll get into it. This was published in Sydney's Evening News on Saturday, the 9th of April, 1898, titled Bunyip Bill by E.A. Wilson. Be there a bunyip? Good Lord. The speaker turned and eyed me critically, I being at the time a verdant jackaroo, literally taking my measure from head to foot. Be there a bunyip? Maybe as you'd like to know if that's a river over there, or if that selector is a dummying for the boss. You'll be asking me next if them cockies is eating the corn, or merely taking a spell while they are holding a controversy about the dry season. The old man's wrath grew warmer and warmer whilst he enumerated the foregoing objects. I hastened to assure him that I meant no offence, and did not for one moment doubt the existence of this mystic creature, but, on the other hand, was most anxious to obtain authentic information upon the subject. Before I had finished, his face softened. He seemed to think he had misjudged me. Well, sonny, I ain't the best tempered cove in the world, and when a green new chum comes along and says, be there a bunyip, I gets narked. Look here, thou aren't a Murridbidgee whaler as can tell you the ways of that varmint better than Bunyip Bill. That's me. I ain't been on the Tumut for 30-odd years with my eyes shut. Here a dozen happy thoughts darted through my brain. I'll tickle the old fellow's vanity, get all the knowledge I can out of him, give up jackarooing, take to literature, write a book upon Australian fauna, enlarging upon the haunts and habits of the bunyip. It has long been a mystery. There is even doubt cast upon its real existence. If I can discover and perhaps capture one, what fortune will be mine? I already pictured myself lecturing upon a platform, surrounded by long-haired professors, I holding a silken chain, a tamed and educated bunyip, whilst I discourse to the appreciative audience upon my wonderful discoveries. So, with this purpose in view, I proceeded to make friends with this ancient specimen of humanity. Taking a flask from my pocket, I invited him to wet his whistle, an invitation which was readily accepted, and after taking a long pull, he returned it with a grunt of satisfaction. The last trace of ill humour had vanished, and he was as ready to begin his story as I was eager to hear it. He was asking me if I ever seen a bunyip. I knowed this place afore the boss's grandfather took it up. I was only a younker at the time, but I kept my eyes about me even then. Bunyips, or as the Aborigines call them, devil, be awful shy and mostly come down the river at night. See 'em? Well, I had plenty chances of seeing 'em when we camped on the Tarabandra side of the river near Brungle, but I never knowed 'em to pass the junction below Bengaralong. The one as catch poor little Jimmy, the Aboriginal boy, was in the big lagoon over yonder, and like enough, he's there yet. The Aborigines won't go within cooee of the place after dark. Bill's yarns were getting decidedly interesting to me. He was evidently on speaking terms with a real live bunyip, who had seized and probably eaten a boy. Perhaps this Nick of the Woods had been present at the tragedy. I felt I was progressing favourably. Tell me all about it, I exclaimed. Right ye are. Have you a bit of baccy about you? When I thinks of that poor little boy, I feels queer. Full of sympathy, I pressed both flask and tobacco pouch into his hand. He took a deep draught and proceeded leisurely to fill a dirty black pipe with my choice weed. After taking a few whiffs, he began his story. See, it was in the early 60s when little Jim came on the Tumut with his mother. a strapping young woman, as had left her tribe. Who his father was, the Lord only knows. She would never tell. Well, anyway, Jim was as fine, a little cove as you see in a day's tramp. His big blue eyes looked somewhat queer in his dark brown face, and his hair was real ginger like yours. Hitherto I had been rather proud of my urban calls. The boy could climb a tree at a 4-year-old as quick and lively as a possum, and was the pet of the whole station. About this time his mother died, and, seeing as how little Jimmy was a nobody's child, all hands and the boss adopted him. At 10 years old he could shoot, ride, swim and swear like an old hand. He was a bright little chap and no mistake. Well, one day the boss and half a dozen of us turned out for a day's shooting, and a blazing hot day it was. Of course the boy came along too, and when we shot the ducks, he would swim in the water like a water dog and fetch them out. The oftener he had to go there, the better. He seemed to like it and was full of tricks as a monkey. After a while, the boss fired into a big flock in the middle of the lagoon, and when the smoke cleared, out we saw 4 or 5 floating on top of the water. Jim was in after 'em in a jiffy. He used to dive and catch 'em by the legs. We saw him dive and come up again without the ducks, and then it seemed amiss with the boy. I sang out, but he took no notice, but he just threw up his arms and struggled. Quick as lightning, every man jack of us was in the water a-swimming to him, but the weeds were so thick near the shore that it was a few seconds afore we could get clear of the cussed things. However, I got a start and struck out towards him. As I neared Jim, he gave out a yell. Lord, may I never hear the like of that again. "Oh, Bill, the devil has hold of me." I reached the place just as he went under the second time. I dived and swam around, but no trace of the boy I could find. How long I was there I can't say, but after a bit I begins to feel somewhat like claws of ice dragging me down, down, down. I was sinking. I could not save myself. I had known then what the boy meant. It was the bunyip. He had taken the poor little chap, and now he was after me. I seemed a goodish time going under. His claws squeezed me tighter, 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 and the water closed over my head. When next I remember, I was lying on the grass near a big fire. The boys were rubbing me, and the boss was pouring grog down my throat. When things got a bit clearer, I asked where little Jimmy was. The boys did not answer, but I could hear 'em all sobbing like, and tears were trickling down the boss's face. Then I knew that, although I got away from the bunyip, he had swallowed the boy. I was ill for a long spell, had the fever, and all the time I could not get the boy and the bunyip out of my head, and that's why they call me Bunyip Bill. The boys told me that the boss reached me just as I was going under. He catched me by the arm and dragged me in the shallow water, then carried me ashore. Afore being seized, I yelled out like mad that the devil had hold of me, and so he had, but the boss saved me, you see. All this is very sad, I said, but did you actually see this awful creature? No, I did not wait to see him, thanks to the boss. I suppose you would have liked me to have gone down and along with Jim, and maybe, he added sarcastically, stayed to supper. If you is anxious anyway to spend an evening in his company, I'll show you the spot where the boy went down. Excuse me for not going with you, two's company, you know, and I did not fetch my party togs along with me today. Before I could answer, he stalked off, leaving me not exactly satisfied about the real existence of the bunyip after all, but with an empty flask and tobacco-less pouch to testify to the genuineness of Bunyip Bill. Upon making inquiries, I found that the people about the station were under the impression that the boy and Bill had been seized with cramp owing to the intense cold of the water in that particular lagoon. So I am still a jackaroo, and my country's fauna and also my fortune remains in its primeval state. The end. I like that story. That's pretty cool. Okay, that's it from me. I'll get back to this all next time. Bye.